Welcome to Building Spaces of Solidarity and Connection, a historical, theoretical, and practical lens on libraries' commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and justice, hosted by the American Library Association Social Responsibility Roundtable, or fondly known as CERT. CERT believes that libraries and librarians must center social responsibility by recognizing and helping to solve problems and social problems and inequities to work for the common good. My name is Derek Wilmot Montoya. My pronouns are he and him, and I will be moderating today's session. Before I introduce the speakers, I'll go over some housekeeping. To enable captions, click More in the bottom right of the screen, then click Show Captions. Our session today will be recorded, and the recording will be available. Excuse me just a second. The recording will be available on our website within a few weeks. Please keep your cameras off and mics off unless you are our presenter or posing a question during our Q&A portion. Please be respectful and extend care and compassion to yourself and others. We will have time for questions and answers after all our presentations have concluded. Please use the Q&A Zoom feature to pose questions and reserve the chat section to relay any tech issues, resource share-outs, or appreciation for our panelists. You can pop your questions into the Q&A as the presentations are rolling. You do not need to wait until they are completed with their presentation to do so. This session will focus on cultural partnerships and programming to support inclusive communities. Our presenters are Makeda Cheatom, Bernice Rodriguez, Amber Matthews, Sandie Thomas, and Shauntee Burns-Simpson. Up first are Amber Matthews and Pastor Sandie Thomas. Professor Matthews is an assistant professor of Library and Information Studies in the Darden College of Education and Professional Studies at Old Dominion University. Sandie Thomas serves as the founder and pastor of Where We Are Now Community Center and holds significant roles on the London Police Service and Middlesex London Health Unit panels for anti-racism. And then next after that, we will welcome Makeda Cheatom, founder and executive director of the WorldBeat Cultural Center in San Diego, California, and Bernice Rodriguez, the center's programming director. And then last, we will welcome Shauntee Burns-Simpson, the director of Youth and Family Services at the Washington, D.C. Public Library. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to our presenters. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you. I'm just gonna get my screen going here. You'll have to, I'm hopeful I had a coughing fit just before we started, so hopeful I get through it today. So welcome, my name is Amber Matthews. As mentioned, I'm an assistant professor of library and information studies at Old Dominion University. I'll give you a caveat though, much of the work that I'll talk to you about today actually stems from my work as a doctoral student at Western University in London, Ontario, where I worked with Pastor Sandie Thomas, who we'll talk a lot more about today. So we have some formal bios to follow. So the work that we'll talk about today is work that we've done together and individually to advance anti-racism in the library and in the community-based sector for Black communities broadly in London, Ontario. And so what we're going to talk about today is just to present just some information about who we are. I called it our origin story. We really met through serendipity. We didn't know each other prior to 2021, but we were two people that were working in sort of the same space we had the same interests, but we were in adjacent spaces. Pastor Thomas was working with Black youth in community-based spaces, and I had an interest in this in the public library space. And then we came together in around 2021. And so this presentation is just a discussion of some of the products of that. And I'm going to talk to you about some of my doctoral research that I completed with Pastor Thomas's help. And then I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Thomas, who's going to talk to us about her public library. And then we'll share some of our research outcomes that you can read about if you're interested. So before we get going into that, I recognize that probably some of you might not have heard of our tiny city in London, Ontario. So I've just got this handy map here for you. I'll give you just a little brief introduction to it for you. So London, Ontario, it's actually quite close. It's one of the cities that is quite close to many American cities, and it's the fourth fastest growing urban center in Canada. And that wasn't always the case. It was really a slow growing city for a long time. And then about 10 years ago, we had 8,000 Black residents. And then just in the last 5 years, that number has shot up to about 20,000 residents that now identify as Black or multiple races. And so, like most cities in North America, we've been dealing with the rise of cost of living, we've been dealing with inflation. And for us, we're just really close to a big mega city, which is Toronto. And so people keep coming down to London and for lower cost of living. And for us, inequity is really highly racialized in the city. So just as of 5 years ago, London had the second highest rate of Black poverty in the province of Ontario, and it actually had higher rates than the city of Toronto. And so there's a robust network of community-based services that really step up to fill that need in our community. And Pastor Thomas's Black Community Center is one of those. And so I'm just going to pass that over to Pastor Thomas and let her introduce herself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Pastor Sandie Thomas. My passion is to close in the gap of what systemic racism has done in all sectors of life for the Black community. And in regards to that is the books are history and the truth behind it and what lies behind it. So I sit on many boards right across Canada, because one thing that I recognize is that people that are non-white are not sitting on these boards. And so then the lenses are not being seen properly. And so I sit on Urban League of London board. I sit on London Police Services. They have an anti-hate, anti-racism board. I sit on that. Going on my 4th year. I do sit on the hospital boards now. I'm going to be sitting on the London Health Sciences board. I'm going to be sitting on Children's Aid Society's board as well, on top of the other boards that I sit on, because it's very important that voices are heard in all aspects of life. So this is a little bit about what I do, creating the first Black community library within London, Ontario, and also the first Black community center within London, Ontario, to give our community and all the other communities an understanding of who we are, what we do. And I always say, if the spirit's not well, nothing is well. And that's a little bit about me. Over to you back, Amber.
Thank you, Pastor. So as mentioned, I am now an assistant professor of library and information studies at Old Dominion. So we are a really new MLIS program. We are the only ALA accredited program in the state of Virginia, and we were actually just started in 2019, and we have social justice and community at its core. So I fit in quite well there. So at ODU, I research and I teach about the community uses of the public library, and I use the lenses of race, class, and gender. And I really ask about how lived experiences shape information needs. But I really want to talk about, for me, how scholarship is really not a standalone process. So my interest in race and youth and public libraries has evolved really through my past scholarly and professional work. So while I was at Western University, I designed the elective course Anti-Racism and Library and Information Science. And this was the first Canadian MLIS course to address anti-racism in the LIS or the MLIS curriculum. And this was Pastor Thomas's and I kind of first introduction of community collaboration. And this class adopted a collaborative approach to learning, where my students worked alongside Pastor Thomas in her public library to apply their MLIS skills in a real world context. And that's really where my work begins, with understanding that there is a long and there's a tenuous relationship between libraries and inequity and social justice. And I really learned that in my work in community sector. So I came from the government. So I've actually myself only been in librarianship since 2017, but I had a really long career in community-based development, where I worked with community groups both in Canada and Central America and in Africa, to build needs and equity specific programming. So I was really a bit surprised when I came into my own MLIS degree and I started to research, communities that I had worked very closely with, and one of them was Black communities in Canada. And I had, started to discover that in our particular body of literature in Canadian youth studies, that there had actually been no studies at all that had counted for them. There had been no studies that looked at the ways that race or class or urbanism were impacting their information needs. So really, which was to say we had not accounted for the systemic barriers that these youth were facing. And so my work is really grounded in these social theories of race, and I use anti-racism and anti-oppression to examine how, how these experiences, these lived experiences can help us understand how public libraries and community spaces, the experiences of those for people that don't necessarily look like me. And so as a white woman who engages with issues of race and power, with a research community that has a lot less access to those forms of privilege. And I have much more to gain from my research than my research community. And even more so now as a tenure track faculty member, I often draw on qualitative methods that allow me to use art or a visual based component to really bring participants into my research. And so this research here was from my doctoral study, and it's Colby. And Colby was one of the first participants that I had. And in this study, I was interested in why youth were going to a community-based program that offered a similar program to a public library. And it was interesting because this community-based space was actually co-located in a public library, and they were offering similar programs. And I was interested in why youth were choosing this particular community-based program over the public library program. And so I want to be clear before I kind of talk about this a bit, though, that my intent was not to vilify or shame public libraries. I was really interested in understanding the lived experience of youth in libraries, their perceptions and their experiences of libraries, so that we could grow from it. And so when I asked Kobe about his experiences with the public library, he told me about, the mean librarian who didn't make him feel welcome. He told me about the lack of smiles that when he went into the library. He told me about feeling watched, right? How he had to feel like a good boy. And so it's really like, as Elijah Anderson decidedly suggests, that the way we look influences our experiences in the world, and it influences our experiences with education and learning. And profoundly for our work, it influences our experiences in public libraries. And so really, I can sum up my doctoral study and the whole findings of my 300-page dissertation in the lines of one of my research participants, Laurel, who said representation matters. And we can also see this in Trevor's personal meaning map. And I want to emphasize a couple of key points here. He's the same age as Colby, and he's from the same town, and he had gone to a program in a similar area, but the environment is different. And so I do want to give a little shout out to Pastor Thomas here, because this is Trevor's personal meaning map of going to a program at Pastor Thomas's space. And here he reflects on the connection and the belonging and the mentorship that he found there. And he told me it was about place to grow. So he said this to me: I guess it's like the community. That's what I get from it, really, when I get to see all those people there. So my study found that youth went to that center, so Pastor Thomas's center and other like it, because they felt safe. They felt like the content was safe. It helped them make friends. They felt like they belonged, and they were offered career and leadership skills that were important to their lives. But more importantly, they went there because organizations got them and they got their learning needs. And so at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Pastor Thomas, who can tell us a little bit more about her approach to youth programming, and particularly her development of the library. Thanks, Pastor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amber. And so one of the main purposes that or how we developed the library, worked alongside with the London Public Library. And one of the things that I first did or was asked was they don't think there was a need for it because they do enough for Black History Month. That got me a bit. And I responded, well, if you think that there's 30% of BIPOC books on your shelves, then you're absolutely right. We don't need to do that. The CEO came back to me and said, you know what, Pastor T, you're absolutely right. I couldn't even find 3%. And so this started about a year of having community meetings with the community, getting their buy-ins, asking them what books they would like to see. If this could happen, what would they like to see? The mayor, the old mayor, was on board with it as well. And so having that buy-in was very important for the municipality. And we put our resources together with the London Public Library, and they offered to get 100 books for us. And then the community came together. And when we launched it with over 500 books by Blacks for Blacks. And it was phenomenal. One of the things that it does do, and now what we see is the library now carrying books, not just during Black History Month, but all through the year, of books about the BIPOC, which is exactly what we wanted to do. And so when you walk into the libraries, even in Toronto, right across, they says, it stems from what the work we did here at Wien Community Center in regards of bringing Black books on the shelves. And by saying that, the best thing that happened, I think, was when the professors, the deans, came and met with me at Fanshawe College and saying that they want to be teaching out of different books. And so that was remarkable because it shows about, she's bringing up here the sustainable approach. And so by doing this and having the community's buy-in, it shows that it's here to stay. Back over to you, Amber.
Thanks. Sorry, I just missed her slide here. And so I just wanted to draw a few different things that I wanted to draw attention to. So the things that I was really interested in when I, first had found out about this project was particularly the way that Pastor Thomas had, really pushed for the use of Black booksellers and small booksellers and was really, pushing on for local procurement. And so when, developing a sustainable approach that way, was breaking through the bonds or sort of previous binds. And so we'll just talk about some of the, some of our core learnings. So what Pastor Thomas had mentioned, there was, an initial reluctance to identify the need for Black-led and Black-centered programming within the library community, and there was an initial reluctance to dedicate resources. And I wonder, I'm interested to hear from others as well that broad support has now waned as well, particularly in Canada, as other issues have become more important. And the Black Community Public Library currently receives no funding support from the municipality. And so it really relies on an already marginalized group of people to donate all of it, its funds and its time. And so trust and relationship building, of course, has been a difficult thing. And then finally, the challenge is centering community voice and perspectives in library collections and programs. And so I really added that one for myself because one thing that stuck out to me was that I noticed that, I'll kind of give you a little thing. One thing that I had done was with my students was that we had gone into the library and we had noticed that there was no collection management system going on. And so my students had worked with Pastor Thomas to identify, what would be, a useful collection management system. And they researched other, libraries that were using small scale systems. And when we were going through them, though, we had noticed there was, some similar, there was quite a bit of aged materials that had been provided to the library. And so, understanding that we need to have those collections to be on a regular basis to be, refreshed in the same way that we refresh all collections. And so I want to also just give a little shout out here. Pastor Thomas is now. Do you want to talk about this, or would you like me just to quickly mention it?
So we are starting to get, in June, we're going to be launching the Black Art Gallery, first of its kind, along with the library, working along with London Museum as well. So we're trying to push the barriers and let our artists know that they too have a voice. And so this is something that goes hand in hand, I believe, with the collection of the art, people speaking through, with the book speaking their voices through art. And anyone that's an artist knows that every stroke means something. And so we will be launching this, as I said, in June. Thank you, Amber.
And so when we think about, what does community-based praxis in LAS look like, I don't want to suggest that this is easy. It was overwhelmingly hard and complicated, and it's been hard for Pastor Thomas and I to work together to find out, how to bring a Black-led organization, into a library or into an academic space. And I understand that it's far easier to talk about it than it is to achieve in library practice. But for me, the question has always been, what is the alternative, right? We have to, either we take these measures or we continue to underserve or, exclude certain communities. And so Pastor Thomas and I have written a number of either book chapters or articles. So I have a citation here, which is a book chapter that details the development of our public library. So if you'd like to find out more, particularly about how the library, some of the processes that we went through. And then we also have a paper that's just coming out pretty soon exploring some of the findings of the doctoral study as well. I just wanted to mention, I also have a paper that's coming out in partnership that is exploring how to integrate anti-racism in your library curriculum. So if that's something, if you are a teacher, please reach out to me for that. And so really I wanted to kind of close with some of the, important kind of findings or some of the important quotes. What did I learn from the doctoral study? And I guess the most important finding that I learned is that, the youth that I talked to was that their public library experiences, they're mediated not only by what happens in the public library or, what happens when they walk in that door and that one interaction that you have. They told me that they're mediated by their environment, their past experiences, everything around them, their feelings of safety and belonging in public spaces. And that's why these community partnerships are so important. Seeing, so the radical Black woman who chose her own pseudonym, I should add, she had never come to a public library before because she just had never, A, thought she was a reader, but B, she had just never had seen herself in books. And so she told me that this was her experience about walking into the library that day. She said, I think it's so sad, but I think as a Black person, you naturally think, I hope no one thinks I'm coming in here to make trouble. And even though I'm in a sundress right now and I look the most girly girl right now, the makeup is done and all that stuff, I still worry about my appearance feeling like a danger. And I feel like I overcompensate by being really nice because I don't want to be seen as the disruptor. Like, who is this person coming inside this place? And that's literally how I felt coming inside the library. At the same time, youth also told me all about how seeing their identity and their culture revealed was calming and reassuring, and it created a sense of safety for them. So Cora, she told me about when she came in to meet me about how there was a Block staff member working, and she said she felt comfortable coming in. She felt comfortable and at ease, not that she had to kind of behave a certain way. And so there are, material benefits to providing these type of services, but there are intangible benefits that these youth and these communities feel when they come in and see their cultures reflected. And so I want to just close with Cora's personal meeting maps because I think really somebody came to me at a conference and said, the one on Cora's public library programs really was my dissertation. And it certainly is where, we can see that Cora, she does she does two things here, right? She tells us that she identifies the benefits of public libraries. She tells us she sees education, a good atmosphere, safety. She believes in the value of reading. But she also depicts lack of belonging and representation, how she feels like she doesn't belong. She doesn't feel recognition for herself. She feels out of place. And she tells us how she feels that she felt inclusion and acceptance in these community-based programs. And that's really the premise of what Dr. Thomas I keep calling you Dr. Thomas. I think you need to get a PhD. The premise really of this project is to really to think about how we can move some of these experiences that youth are having on the right, these feeling of loving and creativity and these feelings, and move them over to the public library space so we can bridge those two, because youth and Black community, the ones that we talk to anyway, they are feeling, they do recognize the benefits of libraries. They certainly just have challenges identifying and finding materials and experiences that are representative for them. Thank you. So I have a QR code on here if you want to find out more about some of my study. And there's Pastor Thomas's website and as well as some email addresses there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat.
Lisa, I think we're going to do questions for all panelists after everybody. So we'll hold on to this question, I think.
Okay, I'll put it in the Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now we'll go ahead and we'll move next to Makeda Cheatom, founder and executive director of WorldBeat Cultural Center in San Diego, California, and Bernice Rodriguez, the center's programming director. Thank you for being here as well.
Hi, thank you. Yes, we're in pretty early here in California, San Diego. We're from San Diego, California, and I'm a native here in San Diego, and we faced a lot of racism. And so I put a cultural center together, and it was in Balboa Park, and it was very hard, very, very. You know, I can't tell you how much racism and police and everything that was, every agency that was called on us. But with self-determination, the second day of Kwanzaa, Kuji Chagalia, we really remained in this building with all incredible things for the park. We signed our lease. They wouldn't give us a lease for
Almost 30 years.
30 years. And it was a water tower. We built it up, and we'll show you what we've been doing here. We're located in Balboa Park, and they said that they would never allow a Black cultural center in the park. You know, it was the mayor. It was a really horrible mayor, very racist. He was on the police force before. He was head of the chief of the police force, and they would put the vice on us. And when we were drumming, they were, you know, it was very horrible. But we made the park, you know, very notable by having a cultural institution. So we are with the Native American Indians in this area, or the Kumeyaay, and we are very close to them. All our activities begin with them. One of my teachers is Tim Redbird, and which taught our Red Ways here at the WorldBeat Cultural Center. And we're people, you know, it's people of all ages, all cultures, all backgrounds that come here, and schools. We celebrate Martin Luther King Day for about, was it 40 years? Martin Luther King Day, yes. So this is our King Day celebration. We do drumming classes, just annual events, King Day, Black Comic Day. That's incredible because we have all the authors and, of comics, and it's really incredible to see your own heroes and sheroes like Harriet Tubman. We have her as a ninja fighter. So incredible. It's one of our greatest events to have Black Comic Day. Also, we have tribute to the legend, that's Bob Marley Day, Earth Day, which is coming up. And so we started a multicultural Earth Day. We wanted to, it was just all the European dominant culture. So we bring everybody in on our Earth Day. Juneteenth, we dedicated to Harriet Tubman, and we show that she was a naturalist. We're with Cornell University in urban birding, and then we do a taste of Africa, and then Kwanzaa. Just our summer camp is incredible. We started for, you know, we'll just move on to it, yeah. And we have an outdoor classroom. And this is our exhibit with, we've been with IMLS for 7 years, and we have, this is Pathways to Freedom, and it shows, because we're right on the border. And so we've always bring in the African Americans and the Mexican Latinx people together. We have a center in Mexico also. Okay, so these are the schools that we work with. we
I'm just
drumming.
gonna break in really quick. It looks like you all are not doing a slideshow presentation and your slides are not presenting, so the only thing that we can see is your first slide.
Oh,
Oh, really? Thank you for interrupting us. Um, let's see here. Are you still seeing my screen? Is it still the first slide?
We're now on K-12 workshops.
Okay.
So if you select slideshow, it should.
Is it working now?
No, it's probably on a different, are you working on 2 screens or is it 1?
It's one. Let me see if I can.
Because your mouse is hovering over the slideshow. So I'm not sure if that's what you selected or not.
sorry, so anyway, we, with the libraries, we, brought Kwanzaa. We had a grant from the California libraries, and we've brought Kwanzaa to the libraries, all the county libraries. And that was really good because they start celebrating Kwanzaa. And we got books of Kwanzaa in the libraries. And can you see us now?
Not yet. I'm gonna do a plan B.
Okay. And also, we do seed libraries. We work with WorldBeat Library and also the downtown library. And that was interesting, getting African Americans into growing their own food. We also make boxes for the seniors with Habitat for Humanity. And we got our own tools, and and the seniors were so happy to get these boxes. And so we provide food, for the community. We work with Baker Creek, so we get free seeds. So one of our things is just, we have a cafe here at the WorldBeat Center, and to get our community to eating good foods. We were very fortunate. I had a restaurant, and it was the first vegetarian restaurant in San Diego. So we've focused on food for our community, plant-based diets, and to get them healthy. And it's been, we're known for healthy foods, healthy thoughts, and we bring the community in. Can you see it now? Can you see us now?
You're on the first slide. You may need to scroll down to or go down to the page that you're on.
Okay.
But it looks better.
Are you seeing the changes right now?
No.
Huh.
So, well, we are in Mercury retrograde. So, so one of the things that, again, that we do for the San Diego community is we have a whole campaign to get them to the libraries. And I had a slide that, get your library card, because, like the sister said before, they were afraid to go into the libraries. And like the library books, weren't for them. Also, we work with Malcolm X Library, and that kind of loosened it. It's in the community, so it kind of loosened them up for going into the library. And Malcolm X Library it's been doing wonders for our community. Like I said, that we've worked with the Downtown Library, California State Library, and we put a seed library in both places. Can you see us?
Can you see the presentation now? Maybe this is a plan C.
I see
Yes.
Multicultural Earth Day.
Yeah, okay, now we
Okay,
can go
we'll
on.
just do it this way.
Yeah,
Full screen isn't working.
okay. So here we have wellness and nutrition camps for the kids. When they grow their own food, it's easy for them to eat good food. And it's so important that our kids and our community knows how to prepare their food and grow their food. Next. Thank you. Again, they're in the garden. This is our summer camp. They're doing dance, watering their seeds and seeing them grow. This is our ethnobotany sanctuary out there. Kids need to be outdoors. Everybody needs to be outdoors and getting healthy and just breathing good air and getting off the phones. Okay, here's our outdoor classroom projects. We teach them urban farming, gardening, school tours come, and like I mentioned, the seed library. And here's our seed library. Sometimes we get some things from old libraries, so we can, when they're throwing out stuff, and we make them our seed libraries. This is our new project. We have a farm, a community farm, and it's around the Tijuana River Valley. So we're growing food and we have a cafe. So we make everything, our menu is very modest price with modest prices, and we teach people how to eat and how to grow their food and how to cook their food. And so this is our science project. We're with UCSD.
Scripps Institute.
Scripps Institute at UC San Diego, and this is a National Science Foundation grant. Also, we work with
We lose them.
I believe they may have froze up. Is anybody else having that issue?
Yeah, it looks like they're frozen.
Birdwalk.
Okay, oh, you're back. Oh,
Okay.
wonderful. Sorry, we
Wait.
lost you for a few minutes there.
Let's go back to the Harriet Tubman. And this is our Harriet Tubman bird walk. So we got people out birding, people from the community. They never thought birding, butterflies, you guys are crazy. So this is a whole bird walk that we have on Juneteenth. And we explained, because
We'll pause for a minute. We are having some storms out here in California, so that might be affecting service.
Well, while we're waiting, I'll just go ahead and do a public service announcement. Just please remember to use the Q&A Zoom feature to pose questions and reserve the chat section to relay any technical issues, resource share-outs, or appreciation for our panelists. You can pop your questions into the Q&A as the presentations are rolling. You do not need to wait until they are completed with the presentation to do so. We apologize for this brief technical issue we're having. As Rachel was saying, they are experiencing some severe storms out there where they're at. There we go. You're muted at the moment. There you go. You should be fine now.
we have so many good things, and I know our time is very short, and I don't know, we can just end it, and we're going to go into our next
Would you like us to go to the next session? Is that? or next slide.
Well, can you see us still?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
good, good. Right here is our center in Mexico, and we work with Black Mexicans. We're almost finished here.
That was it.
That's it?
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you, and thank you for your patience. And it's a great center. We work through all odds in San Diego, which, man, I grew up here and it was very, very hard on us as African people. And to make this center possible, it was a lot of struggle. So thank you very much, and thanks for your patience. And we hope that you'll communicate with us. And when you get to San Diego, please come and visit. Thank you.
Thank you. That's actually a very wonderful presentation. We're taking questions in and such, and at the end of the session, we'll go ahead and I'll share the Q&As with you at that point. So wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of positive responses in the chat. Thank you for sharing and such. So with that, I'll turn us over to our last group or person here, Shauntee Burns-Simpson. I'd like to welcome her, the Director of Youth and Family Services at the Washington, D.C. Public Library, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think they put me last because they know I'm a fast talker, but hi everyone. Thank you for joining this presentation and coming together for us to discuss how we can better involve the community in library practice. Like was shared, I am Shauntee Burns-Simpson, the current Director of Youth and Family Services here at DC Public Library. And I would like, now I hope my thing is working correctly. Let's see. How I think that Mercury retrograde is true. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I would like for us to think about and hopefully agree that the library should be the anchor of the community. And by being that anchor, commit to providing programming and partnering with organizations to make work relevant and show the community how important the library is. Now, I'm coming from the public library sector, but you could take this and think about the community your library serves. So whether it's educators, students, parents, anyone, think about what they are asking for and or seeking from your library. We also want to think about what gaps we may have in serving the community, and that will help us with thinking about partnerships. Now, I want to show how DCPL is set up to support our mission to provide environments that invite reading, learning, and community discussion to equip people to learn all their lives, embrace diversity, and build a thriving city. We are part of the government agency, and so under the mayor, along with the schools and Department of Parks and Rec, you can find the library in the org chart. Now, I'm going to start somewhat in age order, and this is supporting the mission of providing environments that invite reading for DC families, and this is the Books from Birth program. And this provides children under the age of 5 to receive a free book each month to build their own home library. We collaborate with the Department of Health. So we have an MOU. So as soon as someone is in the hospital to give birth and you have to fill out all the paperwork, one of the papers is with the DC Public Library to sign up for this program. I want to take a moment to point out the role of strategic partnerships. So for example, with the Books from Birth, thinking about everything that mom is going through to think about what resources they need for their child, and you're doing everything, and then the last thing you'll probably be thinking about is the public library. So being able to have that MOU with the Department of Health and being able to be there to support the family and getting books and resources sent to them is really, really important. Next, I want to go to building from the Books from Birth program, and we have the Beyond the Book program. And this continues with providing environments that invite reading and learning. Each child can sign up for the program and get a book each season or quarter. And again, this book is for them to keep for their home library. The pictures that I'm showing you are murals that are on the outside of the library and in the children's area, and it allows us to engage with the community in and out of the library. This is the facade of the Southwest Library, and the artwork is from Mel Fell. We have a number of stories from community members sharing how inviting this makes the library, and children of all ages want to read the featured book and connect with the library. These murals appearing at different locations of DC public libraries allow us to be noticed and remind community members that we are hubs of literacy and creative engagement. This multifaceted program offers patrons not only experiences with the library, but also materials that facilitate at-home learning. So along with them getting a free book to keep, they also can get an activity guide, and we create these activity guides in multiple languages, but the most popular is Spanish, Chinese, and Amharic. Staff at the Anacostia Library wore the green hat that we also gave away with the book for Milo Imagines the World, a book by Matt De La Pena. And we love how excited the community does get when we are featuring a new book. Again, I want to take a moment to share a story from a little girl who saw a mural of Ojibwe, who is a girl who is the main character in the We Are Water Protectors book. And she looked at her dad and she says, "She looks like me." And so this is the importance, and we all know this, the importance of showing the characters, diverse characters in our libraries. Next, we have our young adult focused program, which is Know Your Power. And this is focusing on the mission of community discussion to equip people to learn all their lives. So Know Your Power is a social justice program to support teens in knowing what's going on in the world and give them the ability to express themselves through art. So students create visual art, writing, photography, and film. I mean, if you go to our website, you can see some of the documentaries that teens have created. They are amazing. And these teens, they continue to remind me that the future is bright and they want to do better for the world. And so the library being able to give them that access to be able to get a laptop, to be able to get a camera to do this work is very, very important. With all the programs and initiatives, we want everyone to feel welcome. And so that's why we want to make sure that we are partnering with everyone. So we're partnering with government organizations, we're partnering with for-profit organizations, not-for-profit, community-based organization. Everyone is welcome to support the work of the library. So I just wanted to highlight some orgs that has really been instrumental in doing a lot of the work that we're doing. So PEPCO is one of our local energy providers here in DC. They support the Know Your Power initiative. We collaborate with the DC Public Schools. They collaborated with us to create an educator guide for our summer reading program. Washington Nationals, they support giveaways for our summer reading program. And then each library has their friends group. And because we are a government agency, we can't use any funding for food. So our friends groups really help us to provide snacks and food for different programs. So now for our summer reading program, and we call our summer reading program Discover Summer, we partner with local museums to have library days for the community and families to visit for free, because the museums are not free. So being able to support different constituents to go and see what is available at all of the libraries in the area is very important. Along with celebrating local treasures, the Central Library, the MLK Library, has a permanent exhibition highlighting the music scene in DC. So, I mean, I'm coming from New York where hip hop was a thing. In DC, it is go, go. And so we have a rooftop concert series that really brings out all the amazing go-go bands in the area. Next, we have Mayor Bowser, who wanted to highlight arts in the DC area. And so DC Public Library partnered with local artists as well as businesses to celebrate all across the 8 wards. And I'm highlighting these events because it involves a lot of collaboration, co-creation, and participation. What we learn is that you don't want to do all of this hard work for no one to show up. And so that's why it's really important that we keep our community in mind. We make sure that we are listening to our community. And we find that if we listen to our community and we show that we're listening to what their needs are, what they're asking for, then we're showing them that we care. But I do want us to remember that we want to look at our programs and look to see who is not coming inside our buildings, who are not coming to our programs, and really being able to focus on that when we are doing our outreach. I thought I put a video in of I don't know if you all know the line dance books, Boots on the Ground, but that's where we're at this time, where we really all have to pound the pavement and make sure that we are out in the community, letting the community know how valuable and important the libraries are. I don't know if you know how the song goes, but it's the beginning. It says, "Where the fans at?" And so that's where we have to ask, where are our library fans? Because it is the community, is the library people that are going to go and reach out to their Congress members and everyone to make sure that our libraries continue to get funding that we need to do the programs, to continue to provide the resources that they need. I will be remiss if I do not shout out all of the National Association of Librarians of Color, so BCALA, Reforma, ALA, APALA, CALA. These are all great resources that we really do have to make sure that we support and tap into when we're thinking about serving diverse communities. And of course, I cannot forget about CSK, making sure, again, to think about the books that will make a difference and reflect with the kids that are coming into our library. And I think I left a few minutes for questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, welcome. That was wonderful. I'd like to thank all our presenters at the moment. These are excellent presentations, and we saw a lot of chatter in the chat feature here. I'm going to go ahead and turn us over to our Q&A section at this portion of the panel session. However, I'd like to kind of change it up a little bit. If people would like to raise their hands as well and would like to ask a question of our panelists, please do so. It'll put it in the order that you raise your hands. So I'll be able to work with that, as well as the Q&A feature. There's a couple of questions in there, and I'll start with that. I think Rachel may have even had a question. Would you like to start us off, Rachel, actually? Kind of.
Oh, no, I was trying to type the question from the person in the chat. So you can start with the guest.
Not a problem. Okay, excellent. I'm just winging it along here. So first question is actually for Dr. Amber Matthews and Pastor Sandie Thomas. Do you think that this would be possible to achieve within the public library, what your program is, if the library had dedicated space and funds after having worked to build relationships with the Black community and Black-led organizations?
Can I answer that one, Dr. Amber?
I was going to say, I'm going to leave that for Pastor to answer.
Pardon me?
I was going to say, I'm going to leave that for Pastor to answer. So go ahead.
Okay, so in actuality, no, because at the time they didn't have people that looked non-white in those spaces until we began this work, and then it began that way. And so spaces were there. They had enough resources, as they said, but they just didn't have the right lens on. And so by doing this work, It allowed the right equity lens that allowed them to hire people of color, Indigenous people, and the work began.
I think they wanted to know the future, though. Could you do this in a public library if you
Well,
had
could
set
you? Could you?
Yeah.
If they have the right equity lens, absolutely. If all the voices are being represented, absolutely. You want to make sure that you have the LGBTQIA community's voice in there. You want to make sure you have people of all ethnicity groups on the table so that their voices are heard. So absolutely, that can be done.
And maybe as a follow-up for myself, I'm an academic at a university. How would you kind of, what recommendations or suggestions would you have for someone in an academic library?
Definitely making sure that you are doing the work with the community. Make sure that it's community-based, cultural approach. Let's move away from race. I would say race is a social structure, but cultural-based approach and reaching out to the different communities and making sure they have a space. Even if you do a little committee and have a committee that is going to do.
Oh,
I think she froze up a little bit there.
I was also going to jump in here and just offer a little, experience, as a white woman building these relationships. It took me a lot of time. And I think that that's where, we may fall short in our sector is dedicating. So I spent 2 years building relationships with Pastor Thomas and other Black-led organizations before I started this work, partly because it was important to me that, and I wanted to also specify, I didn't lead with my project. I led with the community. What are your community needs? How can my class, how can these are what I have available to me, how can we support you? And then we identified those ways, and then from there, we grew that relationship. It didn't start out with teaching together and doing writing papers. It started out really small, and it's grown. And I mean, I'll share how much it's grown. Pastor Thomas is marrying me. It's like it's grown exponentially into like family now, right? But that was a really small, started with a conversation. It kept coming back to the conversation, but also the thing that, and I know that Pastor Thomas, I showed up and I continued to show up, and I was accountable. When I said I would show up, I showed up. When I said I would do something, I did something. And I knew that had been challenges with other organizations that had failed to follow through. And so I was personally accountable to those organizations.
One thing you need to realize, and she did a great job, is building that trust. And she was able to build that trust within the community, which is great.
Thank you, Pastor Thomas. Did you want to add anything further that, because I know you froze out for a second, if you'd like to finish your thought to the current.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard it all. I do apologize. The internet, when it works well, it works well. When it doesn't, this is what we're led with. But I just wanted to make sure that we understand that. And I think Dr. Amber was saying that when I came in, is making those intentional relationships. And it takes time. It's not going to be overnight, but it takes time to make those intentional relationships and to build it and to foster it. And you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional because we know when someone's being fake. Right. And so we want to make sure if you're just there to check off a box, yeah, we'll be there to check the box off with you. But you know what? It's not going to be it's not going to be true. And at this point, we need transparency because the youth need that. And at this stage, I always say we're here to inspire before we expire. So let's continue to inspire one another. Right. And so that's just a few. I could go on. I'm a preacher, so I'll be quiet now.
You're perfectly fine. We have plenty of time. It looks like we have another half hour. So again, if anybody would like to actually ask a question, if they're having difficulty entering anything in the Q&A, I do have one more question in the Q&A feature. I'll go to that in just a second. But if you'd like to raise your hand instead, I will be happy to let you unmute and ask your question live of any of our panelists. So with that, I think this question was for Shauntee Burns-Simpson and to everyone actually. It's thank you for your presentation. Do you continue to this is definitely for Shauntee. Do you continue to receive pushback from the San Diego I'm sorry. No, Makeda, Cheatom. I'm not sure. Let's see. You continue to receive pushback from the San Diego government officials, police department, etc.
No,
Is the actual that would be for Makeda and
Yeah.
Bernice. Sorry.
well, you know, I used self-determination and all the principles of Kwanzaa, you know, and it was, now I'm on elected boards by the park, boards that I would have to come up and, ask for permits to do shows in the park. And, we really, it took a long time to really prove ourselves. I mean, our big Kwanzaa events right with the community, also working with the library, downtown library, with the Afro-Mexican exhibit right there in the library. And I was just thinking about all the things that we worked with the library and as a community organization. But thanks for asking that. It was it 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 causes a lot of breakdowns, when you have to deal with all that racism. But it looks like we're coming around to working with this again. And so, but as African Americans and most of the people that have had oppression, stand in their way, we know how to get through this. And yes, so if you stay in there and you persist, and we will overcome this and continually.
Thank you. And actually I was corrected. We have 15 minutes left. So we do have time, but not as much as I thought. So another question came up. And this is a question for all the presenters, so feel free to step in and answer this. I'm wondering how our current political moment might be impacting your work, and what advice you have for people who are trying to continue creating inclusive library spaces and experience while having to adapt our language, fly under the radar, so to speak. Give everyone just a moment to think
Well,
on that.
I'm right front and center. I'm in DC, so I hear it for sure. So we know that diversity, equity, inclusion is now the new 4-letter words, and unfortunately, and so where we're doing this work and we're advertising it, maybe if we're trying to go for some maybe grant opportunity, stuff like that, maybe we're not going to use those words, but it doesn't change the emphasis of the work that we want to do. So just really being strategic on the wording. So finding synonyms that's not going to raise a red flag for certain folks who are interested in supporting the library's efforts. But I also think it's important that we don't present as scared, if that makes sense. I think a lot of us have shared that we have gone through some challenges, and I say that by standing on my ancestors' shoulders. When I talk about the Black Caucus of the American Library Association, I was president of that during the pandemic. When I thought the world was going to end, I think many of us was like, "What is going on?" But we realized that we have gone through challenges. This is just a wrinkle. It's a wrinkle that's going to take a lot of ironing to undo. But we're going to get through this. But we can't turn our back on our communities that are dealing with it just as us. So we always have to remember that. What the pastors say, I'm not a pastor, but I could talk about this all day, and I think it is important for us to talk about this so that we are bringing great ideas together so that we can move forward without too much of a hiccups. I mean, we all know what's going on with IMLS, unfortunately, but who else do we turn to when we're thinking about doing these programs? And so thinking about the for-profit sector and being able to say the language that's going to get them to fund us. It's not like doing a bait and switch, but we're going to do the good work that's going to show them why their money was important. But again, we're not going to turn our back to the communities that need us.
I'm looking for those community
Can I just
supports.
interject there? I'm from
Please,
Canada,
please,
but
Pastor Thomas.
I just want to interject something that I think it was Makeda had said earlier, and it was very profound. You got to understand, we know what oppression is. We don't hide from it. We got to deal with it every day. And so this is nothing that we haven't dealt with. So we continue to rise and do the work that we know we are needed to do. Our voice matters. And as Shauntee said, we stand on our ancestors' shoulders. They're there. They left a footprint for us to continue on. So we don't give up. We don't give in. We continue to fight. And we do it methodically, strategically, so that we will be victorious and our generations to come will be victorious. I just want to add that. Thank you.
And you know, I'm from California, and we fight. It's a different fight, you know, and the state is really behind us. And so I got a state grant, you know, which was, you know, and other private. So I think that, you know, as the sister says that, you know, our ancestors been through this. We continue to not be watered down, you know, just continue with our community. I'm a community activist. I've just been in this a long time. So we continue, and I don't like taking, because we have to take a lot of words and everything out, but work with your community organizations too. You get away a lot more. We're here for you. So thank you.
Thank you. And April, I saw you had your hand up. Did you still have a question or?
Oh, I just had a question, but I saw we were running out of time. But if anyone wants to answer this really quick, I really love the stories of the successes of people walking in and feeling comfortable and seeing themselves. Have you been able to use these stories to get more buy-in for people who've maybe pushed back before?
I just wanted to, you know, share a success story, you know, an academic success story. So Pastor Thomas and I, like I said, you know, I wouldn't say push back, but, you know, one thing that I had noticed, you know, that we had, you know, a big faculty, and anyone who's in academia knows this too. We had a big building that students were hardly using, of computers and all these computer labs, you know, and Pastor Thomas was running Black kids coding programs with like pretty beat up laptops and stuff like that. And so there was kind of a reluctance of how would we bring this program in? And you know, so brokered those relationships. And now I know, I don't know how many you've done, but really using those underutilized spaces in a, you know, what we might call, you know, like a historically white institution, right? For these types of innovative programming that are not only, you know, they're programming that is opening, and they have nothing to do, I just want to specify this too, they have nothing to do with the university, right? And so that was the linchpin, right? Getting the university to do with it, right? They weren't getting any publicity, they weren't getting anything from it. And so that's a success story, I think, right there, of building a relationship. And also, you know, because that type of relationship requires that person who has the keys to that room sees the value of the program, right? Sees the value of that community, as opposed to the value of the checkbox that Pastor Thomas mentioned. And so, you know, I think about that, and I wanted to add there, you know, there are other funders that are, you know, still funding, you know, library work. The Spencer Foundation particularly has some programs that are open to library funders as well, or library programs. And I have a long list that I've been compiling, so if I can share that with you, please. I don't know of any using vacant walls, but I wish I did. You know, there's but if I can share, you know, specifically around education and library funding, for mostly academic, but I'm happy to share that with you.
I think there was.
And I would say for the Beyond the Book program, we're actually in our last year of that grant. And so we had to do an annual report for it for the funders. And I'm telling you, you're going to bug out when you hear who actually funds this program. Jeff Bezos. So anywho, that's what I'm saying. Use money for good. So every year we usually show the numbers for the program because that's ultimately what folks want to hear. But this last year we wanted to incorporate the stories of communities that said, I didn't even realize that that was a library until we, put up the murals from the picture book. And also stories from the staff. With morale being so low, we wanted to really incorporate how coming into this vibrant building and hearing such positive feedback from the community, coming in like excited. We wanted to share that as well because we can't forget about our staff who are doing amazing work day in and day out during this craziness. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap this up. We have one last question, but I'm not sure if anybody will have time for it. We'll make this the last one. Do you know of any partnerships that involve use of vacant malls for community centers, including libraries?
There's a few libraries that have put up libraries in a mall. I'm trying to think of where the last, I can't even think because everything's a blur now. We're trying to remember the last conference because they were actually in the process of building a library in the mall. And if I think about it, I will definitely share it with Rachel to share out. But there's been a number of libraries that have done that. I could think offhand, the New York Public Library, who actually built a library out within a shopping plaza, is the Charleston Library on Staten Island. But it's definitely a different way of providing service. And I think that we could learn a lot from the interactions of people going shopping and using the library. So I'm sure there'll be somebody doing research on that, but there's a lot of great work around that.
And in
Okay,
London, it's
thank
pretty
you.
common to have like a co-located community space. So the one that I had mentioned, it has like a community center, a public library. It has a bunch of other like smaller, there's like a food bank. And so it's not so much a mall, but it's like almost like a mall of community services, really. And so it's got a
Well,
separate.
they have a library. Yeah, they have a library
They have a
here.
library in there, yeah, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a library right in the mall, which does very well because people, especially in the area where newcomers are, and so the newcomers use that resource a very lot. So I do like the idea of having a library within the mall for what Shauntee was just alluding to. It's very important, and you get to see different people. And it would be a great place to ask the questions and get great responses in why they're going there. And just get their input and see their lens in how they see the library and how it's great, how that resource is great to have in the mall as they're doing their shopping, their grocery store, going to the grocery store, the drugstore, all of that, and having that there.
Right, repurposing those areas is just a really a good thing to do. Just to follow up, and I'd like
we have
to.
two
Go ahead.
locations.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Derek. We have two
Oh, you're fine.
locations in DC that we don't share it in a mall, but we share it with Parks and Rec. So we're getting a lot of enthusiastic youth that come into the library after they leave the rec center, or maybe they got kicked out the rec center. But definitely we get a lot of great kids coming into the library in the two locations that we share with the Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Shauntee. And with that, I'm gonna close this out. Thank you all to all our presenters and to those who came out for this session. Thanks also to the CERT team for handling tech and chat. CERT is committed to ensuring that all programs are diverse, inclusive, and free for attendees. To do so, we rely on support from the ALA membership and direct donations. You can champion our roundtable's mission by donating at the link provided or joining CERT as a member. You can make a general gift or select the CERT task force or the award you wish to support. Please help us maintain our high quality programming, the core values, and sustain it, and our commitment to accessibility by making a donation, becoming a CERT member, or helping to spread word about our roundtable and events. Thank you. Our next session is Toward Equity and Inclusion in Library Services and Professions, which will start in about 14 minutes at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. I hope you all can join us. Thank you. And thank you to our presenters. Round of applause for them too. Wonderful session. Wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
thanks, Derek, for your
Thank you, Derek.
moderation.
Thank you.
Thank you.